Hi, my name is Xpecial from Team Liquid. This is my basic champion guide to Bard. Bard is a champion that doesn't have too many offensive abilities, meaning that it's probably not best to go for Heavy Pen or Magic Pen runes. So that means on reds, you either want armor or AD. And since I feel like his early game is a bit weak, I prefer AD. That way you can actually start fighting people and just be actually a force in lane. For yellows, I prefer HP as I tend to go armor into Quint and just kind of get my armor from there. So HP yellows. For blues, I usually go some mana regen and some MR depending on the lane. Typically, I get around 2 mana regen. That way I can spam spells more and then get like 4 MR or something like that. But it depends on the lane. And then for quints, I get 3 armor quints or 2 armor quints and an AP quint just for a little bit extra healing and a little extra damage for lane. For masteries, you just go to standard support page. 0921, very standard. You want extra move speed, just some extra tankiness for early game, stuff like that. So 0921, not too much explanation there. Fairly simple. Bard has a couple of skill orders that you can go for. The one I typically go for is level 1, I actually get W, the heal. This way I actually don't get destroyed in lane, which is the big weakness of Bard. He's really weak in lane. So by getting W early on, I pretty much run into lane, drop a couple of the W's down. They cost 100 mana each, which is a lot. And then I go back to base, regen my 300 mana, and then go back to lane with full mana and 3 health thingies that I can use for my teammates. Okay, level 1, get W usually, or you can get Q if you want to fight level 1 or something like that, or you just don't respect the opponent and then you don't think you can get harassed out or something like that. And level 2, I get Q or W, depending on which one I didn't get. At level 3, if I have a hard lane, then I'll get an extra point into W. That way I can get a bit more sustain. Otherwise, I'll just keep getting points in the Q. You want to max Q, as it's the only spell that does damage, and you want to have extra CC, lower cooldown, all that good stuff that is associated with Q max. And then level 4, usually I get points in the Q or W, depending on if I actually want more laning power. But if I'm okay with that, and I want to set for a gank or something, then I'll go for a point into E. That way I actually have some good sort of ways to get my jungle in for a good gank. I always max Q first. It's the only thing that gives me damage and only thing that can really help with getting kills in lane. So always max Q first. But after that, you can put about 2 or 3 points into W total, and then you start maxing E. That way you have more tunnels for team fights and being able to gank more efficiently and stuff like that. And of course, pick up your ultimate whenever you can. Even though it's not the best laning ultimate, it's still useful to have. So Bard being a new champion typically has a lot of builds that people are going for, but the build I prefer the most is the following. So level 1, I get a Filthy's Edge. That way I have a bit more AP, more mana regen, being able to spam my heal more, all that good stuff. And I prefer that. And I also get 4 HP pots if I have a hard lane, or 3 HP pots and a mana pot if I think my AD is gonna get harassed mainly. So this build allows me to have a lot of auto attack power and just gives me slightly more power in laning. Another option would be to go for a sort of a relic shield build, but I don't prefer that as much as you typically are a bit weaker in lane anyways, and you'd rather have a bit more AP. That way we can actually trade it a little bit better. But after that, I usually try to rush my Sightstone as soon as possible. I also try to get boots or for Mobies, that way I can roam a lot more too. These are all, like, those 2 items are really, really important for support and what I aim to rush pretty much every single game. After I have these items, I tend to diverge my build into sort of different options. If I want more teamfight ability, I will go for sort of CDR with a Frozen Heart, or I would go for an Aegis of the Legion into a Locket for a bit more CDR and a little bit of Ord as well. But if I just want more HP and stuff, I usually go for a Righteous Glory. That also gives me a pretty good engage and allows me to be able to get in good flanks and helps me set up for my ultimate. So depending on what I need for the game, I have a couple different builds. One build is where I go Frozen Heart just to have more CDR and have an aura there. Another option is Locket for more against a heavier magic damage team. That way I have a shield and some extra HP and some MR and stuff in there too. The last option is to go for Righteous Glory to really set up for engages. Allows me to follow up on my ultimate really easily. And out of those, I prefer Righteous Glory the most just because I prefer engaging and I prefer being able to set up for the rest of my abilities. So Bard's solo Q is actually a bit weak. He doesn't have much damage and he's not a good laner at all. He also has skill shots, and his ultimate is very team dependent. You can easily help a team win a fight, but you can also help your team throw a fight by ulting at the wrong time. So definitely not my favorite champion to play in solo queue, but he's quite fun, especially his tunnels. And pretty much anything he can do in solo queue, you can probably do better in sort of competitive play or in a ranged team. So he's not my preference in solo queue. I think he's a bit weak. I think he's one of the weakest supports actually for solo queue. Definitely not a recommendation from me. The biggest reason why Bard isn't good in solo queue is because he is very weak in lane. And typically in solo queue, games are often won in lane. And if you can win a lane really hard, then you can easily win a game. Also, his unreliability is very hard to communicate with a team. His tunnels as well can get pretty annoying to use. And sometimes you're like, okay, don't go in the tunnel, or like people don't really know how to use a tunnel effectively, or you're trying to set for a gank and you need to use a tunnel immediately. People aren't always aware of that, so he's a bit hard to use in solo queue because of coordination needed, and definitely not my preference in solo queue. Bard's laning is weak. Basically, he has a skill shot on his Q, only one ability on his Q that does damage. His passive is kind of weak early on and makes it so that he's just not a strong laning champion. There's not enough damage to kill people with, and not enough pressure or CC to make up for that. Plus, he has two abilities, his E and his ultimate, that does no damage and don't provide any utility in a lane. So that makes him just not a strong lane champion. Okay, because laning on Bard is bit difficult, especially early on. What you want to do is try to mitigate his early game as much as possible and just kind of survive early game. So what I like to do is I like to get W early on. That way I can get a lot of my healing things down before the lane phase even starts. And like I said earlier, I put down a couple of my Ws before laning and before. So it allows me to go back to base and heal my mana. This way I just have extra 300 HP for laning, and that's always pretty useful. Also, his laning is very weak in that he doesn't have many damage abilities. His CC is also very unreliable and easily dodged, or you can also miss it pretty easily as well. So it's very important that when you're fighting in lane, that you don't try to go all in with the assumption that you're going to land on your abilities, but try to use your abilities in a way where even if you miss, you're not going to die for it. So in laning, try to play a bit more conservatively, and if you're trying to go for all in, you need to line your Q. Otherwise, it can turn really bad. Or if it's even easier if you just play more passively and try to use your Q to initiate a fight rather than wait for it to finish it up in a team fight. As it's actually very easy to miss your Q, and especially if there's no minions or a wall around, it's pretty much guaranteed that you're not gonna get a stun down. And the snare is not, or the slow is not too useful, and you want to get the stun down pretty much every single time. So in lane, typically chimes will spawn all over the place, some near you and some more far away. One thing about chimes is that they give you a little bit more bonus move speed. So one, you can stack them up. You can get you can stack up to 5 of them, and you can get a bunch of boost speed. Helps for you to get chimes that are kind of far away. But one thing about them for laning is that they give you a sizable chunk of mana, and when you're spamming spells as much as you should be, you're gonna run out of mana really quickly. So running around and grabbing some chimes in between the waves can be very useful, and it helps you to be just sustain your mana, as you're probably gonna not win lanes too well, and you're typically gonna run out of mana a lot. So grabbing chimes whenever you can, but again, you don't want to leave your teammates in a 1v2 and just completely ditch them. But at the same time, you need to keep track of your own mana and actually have mana for a fight. Bard is very hard to play in teamfights. He has a lot of abilities that can be used in many different ways. So the easiest thing to do is obviously for W, you want to heal somebody that's trying to run away, let them get an escape in. Generally, you can't really charge up the heal for a team fight. It's just way too difficult. His E is something that you kind of want to use to help people escape or to help chase. Generally, in a team fight, that's not going to be your first priority. So one other thing is his Q. You generally want to hit that on the front line. It's very hard to hit on the back line. And then his ultimate is the most difficult to use. You generally want to use that on their back line and to prevent their escape or to stop them from doing damage. But you don't want to use it when your team is trying to dive in at them, unless you can sort of prevent your team from dying in that process. As generally, if your team is jumping on them and they're flashing forward and whatnot, and you kind of zone everybody in place, they're just gonna flash away and just basically plan out their escape route. And especially if you have someone like Zed or any other assassin, they're gonna be very mad at you if you ult them as they're trying to kill somebody. My first tip for Bard is to use your magical journey to get to lanes faster. So one thing you can do with Magical Journey is that you can pretty much hug a wall in your base and be able to just go all the way from your fountain to pretty much your inhibitor just through one tunnel. And that just cuts off time from you trying to roam or trying to get back to lane early and saves time just in general. So it's a good thing to use and your teammates can jump on it as well and it's just a lot of fun. Thanks for watching this champion guided bard. Make sure to follow me on Twitter at Xpecial and check out my other videos here at lawclass.com. Thanks guys.